Hey, happy Tuesday. It's Jill Munroe. I'm an entertainment journalist here in LA. I also have a talk radio show on KBLA Talk 1580. But tonight, we're getting into the details of the second day of Diddy's trafficking trial. And of course, it involved the moment that a lot of people have been waiting for. Cassie hit the stand, and it was a brutal 8 hours of testimony. Uh, and we're going to get into the details, just, some of the highlights, some of the things that came up were how the Freakoffs started, what she had to do for preparation, what actually went into the Freakoffs, and some details, some details that are just bananas. But we'll get into all of that. I have to go to my notes to start. There also was the cross-examination of the escort that appeared in day one. Philip is his last name. I'm not going to say his whole name. But so we'll get into that. But I know what people are really interested in, what you really want to know, what you're really trying to figure out is what the heck was she saying about Diddy? So listen, there is so much to get into. First up, Cassie, basically says what we all knew. She met him, signed a 10-year record contract, and at her 21st birthday was the first time Diddy made a move on her. He kissed her in the bathroom. She said she was confused because she was in a relationship with Ryan Leslie. Did not say his name, and Diddy was in a relationship. Kim Porter. Pretty sure that's who it was. All right, so basically, she walked us through her day. They were asking questions. Now, one of the things that I found interesting, and a lot of people are saying this is part of the Stockholm syndrome or coercion, is that she admitted that she loved Diddy and that she made some of these moves, she engaged in some of this behavior to make him happy. That ultimately she admitted to being very jealous of the thought or when he spent time with other women. She said during the course of their relationship, they were not exclusive. They both saw other people at various points. So, but what she really wanted was him. She was in love. She said that sort of the door opening for the Freakoffs and the extreme behavior happened pretty early in their relationship, maybe a month or two in. The first years when the Freakoffs started. She said that he kind of positioned it as he was opening up to her, that he was, being vulnerable, and they were discussing fantasies. And so he told her that his fantasy was that he was into voyeurism and he liked to watch. It wasn't something that she was familiar with. He kind of explained himself. And then at some point he was like, so you want to bring this into reality for me? And she said that though she didn't, she said yes, because she wanted to make him happy. She also said that the Freakoffs were really the only time she felt like she got to spend with him. That there were moments in between the sessions that she got to spend her alone time with him. She said he was very charming, all of the Diddy things. She talks about in Miami, the first time she took drugs, he offered her, I believe it was ecstasy. They called it Blue Diamond, Blue Dolphin, excuse me. They took it on a boat and were rolling. So let's get into the prep a little bit for the Freakoffs. I'm all over the place because there's so much, and I'm looking at my notes like where to start, and I just don't want to, go through each question answer one by one because, yeah. So she said that the prep for the Freakoffs was that she had to get her hair done, her nails done, white toes. We heard about the white toes thing. We heard about that from Miami too. White French tip nails with the white tip. Her whole body had to be tanned. She had to get her hair done. She had to work out. She had to be in shape. He wanted her to look a certain way. He dressed her for these Freakoffs. So he would put her in fishnets, see-through lingerie. So the setup was, we heard about Philip, one of the earlier ones. She would go to Craigslist, Backpage. Sometimes there was a site called Angels and Cowboys where she would find and secure these escorts. It even eventually got to the point that there was a guy that would basically, dial and deliver. Hey, I got this guy, da 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 da. You want to check it out? Now, it should be clear that Cassie said that she was the one that researched and would pick them out. They were in, Diddy had to approve all the guys. He needed to see the picture first. They were Black or Latino. She said there were times when he would ask her what it felt like when the men were having sex with her. She said that he would ask her to describe their lower regions and all of these things. She talked about that, they would wear masks, they would don costumes. We already kind of reviewed some of that yesterday, where he told the witness yesterday that he was into imports and exports. He had on the low fitted, the bandana, and a robe. She always introduced the situation. She would come to the door in lingerie, like the guys would be showing up. A lot of times, maybe, first time or whatever, and was like, hey, my husband isn't gay. He's a voyeur. He just likes to watch. Are you into it? It, can pay handsomely. They were paid anywhere from $600 to thousands of dollars. They were not paid if they couldn't keep it strong or if they did not get to their destination. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going, I'm coming. So if they didn't make it to the destination, they weren't paid. She also detailed how she felt like nothing at some of the times. She didn't understand it, but she said she loved him. So he would get upset if she didn't want to participate in the Freakoffs. She did say that the lifestyle with him was enjoyable, fun, that it was very glamorous. She also shared that when he would get mad and say, okay, you're being typical, or whatever the verbiage was that he used, that he would say, I'll just get somebody else to do it. And that would make her crazy jealous. She said, although she didn't really want to do it, she did not definitely want him doing it and engaging in it with someone else, which, interesting, right? She also says that, she probably would, if they were less frequent, she might not have been so intense. She indicated that sometimes she didn't mind them, but that the frequency was what started getting to her. She said every week they had Freakoffs. The longest one was 4 days. Generally, they could be anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. Sometimes there would be multiple escorts. If you heard the conversation in the opening statements about her choking on some drizzle, basically what she said happened was that she was so drugged out, so far on drugs. She said before Diddy, she had only done weed and maybe drinks, but he introduced her to X, ketamine, Molly, mushrooms, you name it, they were dropping it, and they would just be, rolling and having these Freakoffs. She said that, that it was, I'm stuck on the fact that she said that it was the only way that she could get time. She felt she could get time with him. Now, we know that she signed a 10-album deal. She only recorded one album. There were some mixtapes. She said he controlled what jobs she was allowed to accept. The condo that she mentioned was in Wilshire Corridor. So for those of you that aren't in LA, Wilshire Corridor is right below Beverly Hills. It's where UCLA's campus is. So Diddy would golf cart down to her spot. She said that they had sex in New York, in Ibiza, in Miami, all over the place, sometimes at hotels, sometimes at her space, sometimes at his space. She said the only place, that they may not have had anything go down was in her Studio City house. 4 days and Diddy is in his 50s. Well, technically, he was in his 40s when this was going on. And shout out to you, Doradu. I might be saying it wrong. I apologize to you if I am. But essentially, he was not really getting it in. He was directing. She said that Freakoffs required 10 bottles of baby oil, that he wanted them drenched in it, glistening, shining, and that if there wasn't enough or if he felt like they weren't moist enough, More baby oil, more baby oil. He was directing where, how the guy should have sex with her, the things that they should do. It should be mentioned that the guy Philip said that one time when he was into it with Cassie, he looked up and he was looking Diddy in his eyes, and that Diddy snapped on him and was like, I'm not gay. Don't look at me. Pay attention to her. But Diddy would have questions about Cassie, asking her to describe their genitals, what it felt like, all of these things. And he got off on that. And I'm also going to share with you some details of what happened when they would go in the room and leave the people, the escort, sitting out there. So a couple of those times, she said that, there was always drugs. It was always drug and fueled. Candles, lots of candles. She said that they would basically tear the hotel rooms up because of the baby oil, the Astro Glide, the candle wax. Sometimes they would pour candle wax on her. She said they upgraded the ambiance and that he had lighting systems. So one of the things, because so far, a lot of this sounds like a very intense, toxic sexual relationship. Is it trafficking? Is it prostitution? So I think where these things will come into play is the fact that some of these escorts were flown out. Here's an important note that should be noted. Diddy wanted to keep even the people that he worked with out of his business. So there were emails where he would basically, if he was flying these individuals out or sometimes paying them in other ways, he would say that he was onboarding them or meeting with them for a project, like they were freelancers. So the people that were scheduling, so to speak, some of the travel, they may not have known what they were scheduling the travel for, because Diddy would always cloak it in that it was business. That's an important distinction. The prosecution might be building their case with that because, as we know, this is being taken from the approach of a criminal enterprise. And right now, we only have a one-person RICO. Maybe some of the other people that would have been charged are not being charged for evidence. Shout out to Auntie Ayla. Is there a stronger word than freaky? My word, depraved. I mean, I don't know. We listen, we don't judge. We listen, we don't judge, but I'm judging just a tad, like a lot. Cassie said that she would have to engage in these activities even when she was on her cycle. They asked her, which I feel like is crazy, but they asked her what the aftermath of the Freakoffs was like. She said that the room was a little funky, smelled like body odor and baby oil and Glide, and that Diddy liked the room to be a little muss, that he liked that taint in the air. Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous and crazy. Let's see what else, because I got my notes. I wanted to make sure that my notes were on point. She said that when he first asked for this, she was confused, nervous. She wanted to make him happy. She said that there were many more. It wasn't something I wanted to do. She said at least not that frequently. So here's the thing. Is it coercion? Are you just in a relationship where you guys are into BDSM and all of these things? Granted, now, rape isn't, I probably shouldn't have said that. I hope I still can keep my monetization, but is not one of the things that he's been charged with, right? But it's in the air. And she did admit that she didn't necessarily always mind them. But she also said that there were moments when she felt like it was nothing, and that when she would bring up sometimes that, she wasn't into it, it would cloud the whole day. He would be in a bad mood. Sometimes there was physical threats of violence, or that he would hit her during these moments when she would say no. Or, as I mentioned, threaten to, potentially go and engage with someone else, which she didn't want him. Shout out to Charlie Hager. He says that he believes KK has silently been Philip. So if you're not sure who Kristen is, Kristen, who Cassie mentioned, is one of Diddy's assistants. And Cassie said she was very close to her, that she knew all of Cassie's business because she confided in her a lot. She would be someone that sometimes would be called to set up the rooms. If they would run out of baby oil or, Astro Glide during these situations, sometimes they would call someone that worked for him. Sometimes they would call to the hotel. Sometimes they would ask the escorts to bring it with them. Now, the it was also mentioned that I want to make sure I get all of this right because, like I said, there's a lot. She said that they both, at various times, would record the situations, right? She also said that she felt that he had blackmail materials for her. Hi, shout out to you, Lonnie Sanders. Thanks you. Is it Saunders? Thank you for tapping in. So she said that she felt intimidated that he might release this footage if she said no, which made me think of something. Do you guys remember a few years back when all the celebrity pictures were leaking and there were photos that were coming out of various people? And there was a photo of Cassie. She was kind of spread eagle, looked like she was in a hotel, and it was leaked. Had me wondering, like, was that some intimidation that that photo of her ended up out there? I know that there was definitely a hacker that was hacking into all of the hard drives and Apple accounts for various celebrities, but I do wonder if that particular photo was part of this mix. Also, I know that we have revisited this video. I'm sure you've seen it from a few years back where Cassie and Diddy were in a hotel and Cassie had a blanket over her head. At the time, people thought they were just fooling around. I don't know. You know, maybe it was in the aftermath. In speaking about the freak off, especially the one where where he attacked her and it was recorded in the hallway at the Century City Intercontinental Hotel, which is no longer in existence, although there's a hotel there still. But she said that she wanted to go get ready for her film premiere. She had a movie premiere that was coming up, and that is what the argument started because she wanted to leave and go get ready. So, look, and that was the result. So the question becomes, right, he was violent. Is that equivalent to trafficking? Remember, in opening statements, the defense said we will succumb to all of that. Diddy was violent. He not a nice person, was abusing drugs, but does that mean trafficking and so forth? Excuse me. I don't know. We'll have to see as the case rolls on. But I certainly see how they're trying to build it out and talking about the various escorts being flown in and set up and paid and so forth. Cassie said that she said that he would send security to keep tabs on her. One of them was D-Rock, who's been down with him since the early Bad Boy days. KK, who Charlie mentioned, was another person that they would come and, find her, check on her. She wouldn't answer the phone. I mentioned that she said that they were both dating other people at various points throughout this. She thought they were monogamous. They were not, and not in an exclusive relationship. She said that she followed him to LA. She said that he told her, I'm Puff Daddy, so I'm going to see other women. And she said she was insanely jealous when he gave her that information. So I ask you, is that coercion? If he says, fine, you don't want to do it, I'm going to go get with somebody else. Don't know. These are the type of things that the jury will have to ponder and go through. She also said that for most of the places where she stayed at in LA, Diddy paid the rent, except for the house in Studio City, where she said she was making some of her own money and that she paid the rent there. And she said at that point she could afford it then and she wanted to have some control. And he accepted that. So the thing that I find interesting about this is, once again, that element of control, fear, and things of that nature. She said that he controlled the jobs that she gets, but she said that she was able to have her own money and pay for her house in Studio City. Those type of things are going to come up. Charlie Hager, he's on fire. Thank you. KK was known to carry the drugs in a fanny pack for the participants in the Freakoffs. Now, here's the thing. She did not indicate, not disputing what you said, because that has been talked about out there, but she also did not indicate that other individuals were in the suites or in the home when these situations taking place. She said it usually was just her and Diddy. Like I mentioned, he would dress her in all of the things, wigs. Her name was, I believe, Jackie Star. That is the alias that she would use. Diddy would use Black. And so wild thing. Let me finish going through my notes. And she said the Freakoffs became a job, that there was no time to do anything else but to do them and try and recover. She said that she recorded hundreds of songs, but they didn't get used. Now, here's the thing. Here's the question, right? Because Diddy gave Cassie the one hit that she had, right? Well, it was a part of it, Ryan Leslie, technically. He could say the material wasn't up to par. She wasn't ready. Her voice wasn't ready, or something like that. So, I mean, there are things related. Again, I'm just talking about the trafficking because I think we can all agree Diddy was a horrible person. He was into some depraved, crazy, just a lot of stuff, right? Just stuff that is mind-blowing. All right, I'm going to get into the details of this. I'm going to tell you about this. I don't know if you heard about it. Probably have, but if not, get your snacks, get your beverage. I got a little water here because you got to stay hydrated. So look, I told you during the Freakoffs, sometimes they would take a break and they would go in the room for hours, and the escort would be out in, if they were per se in a suite, there's a separate living room. The escort would be out there, I guess, recharging, doing whatever, waiting for round 2 to swing back around, right? So while they were in the bedroom, right? Because remember, Diddy's orchestrating. He's telling what to happen, telling them to back off, cool off. You guys are doing too much. More baby oil. I want you to drop off your situation right here on her chest, on her neck, wherever. So I'm not sure if it was one time or several times, but Cassie said on the stand that, when she would go and get her quality time with him in the room, sometimes they would have sex, sometimes it was just cuddling, alone time. She valued it. That the escorts, little swimmers, Diddy would ask her to massage that into his chest and his nipples, and he would take care of himself with his own hand, getting off on that happening. Yo, when I tell you, I have never in life heard of anything like that. That's a lot. It's all a lot, but that is a great deal. She said that there were many hotels that they had to pay fees for because they just messed it up, messed up the furniture, smell, baby oil, because you've gotten oil on something before, right? You know what happens with that. They also, the baby oil had to be a certain temperature. The room had to be warm. He would set the temperature. He would set the scene. He would dress everybody. He was directing. I don't know. Maybe Diddy should have just got into directing adult films, because once again, even though the actions are questionable, dirty, all of these things, it should be noted that none of the men said that Diddy touched them, interact with them, or, did anything sexual with the men. So he's watching, which in and of itself is crazy, but they weren't interacting with each other physically. So, take with that what you may. They did take a break. They said during the first half of the questioning, Cassie was pretty straightforward, stoic. She had a tissue, but, she was just pretty matter of fact, soft voice. Let's see. Charlie Hager says, once a fee is paid for sex, according to most states, it is considered prostitution. You are exactly right. Again, the prostitution charge maybe, but here's the thing. A lot of times it was Cassie's credit card on the hotels, and I get it. She might have gotten immunity, but she was, in some cases, even though it might have been his money, the one paying. So I'm going to be very curious when we get to that point, probably in 7 weeks or so, what the jury's instructions will be. Because I think the definition of coercion, the definition of trafficking, I think there's something called acts and means, which is related to trafficking and how these things play into that. I think those things will be very relevant and will be included in the jury instructions. Um, you know, and then were the men paid? Now, Cassie says they were paid for sex. Obviously, as I mentioned, she hasn't been cross-examined yet. That will happen tomorrow. But technically, were the men paid for that? Were they paid for, dancing, and this just evolved? It's going to be very interesting. I know they're going to put Cassie through the ringer tomorrow. I know they are. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they position it and what they try and push and pull and get out of her. As mentioned, she was more emotional when she came back for the after lunch to testify. They did ask her, how did she make her money? She said she did hosting parties when Diddy approved them. She was calling him Sean throughout all of the testimony. For some, I watched a couple of different recaps from people that were in the courtroom, as well as read some of the transcripts. Read the transcripts, which is how I'm gathering this information. Some said they felt that Cassie was still in love with Diddy, that you could tell. Others said that it was very apparent that she was a broken woman. She said that he dismissed her when she objected, as I mentioned. She said that he told her to work out to prepare for the Freakoffs. She said that Diddy would take things away from her as punishment if she didn't do what he said. She said he was paying for her cars. He would take them away. She said that he would take away her laptop, her phone. She said he took away her self-confidence. She said that the staff would be the ones that would come and take these things from her. And she said that they would be gone for however long the punishment was. She said that she was in constant contact with his staff, basically daily, and that Diddy had her to get piercings. Initially she had, one nipple piercing, and she said that I guess she got tired of it, something, she took it out, and he was like, nope, need that back. He also had her get a hood piercing. Girl, talking about doing it for love. But now I'm sure that the defense tomorrow will get into the relationships, the other people that she was dating, and things of that nature. So I'm pretty positive that we will get some details on that and how it kind of connected with Diddy. And also, there's also going to be redirect and things like that. She says that obviously I mentioned that she was expected to take care of the Freakoffs when she was on her cycle. She said that it should be obvious that she did not want anyone urinating on her, and that she shouldn't have to say that. She said that there was one time that she called him to tell him, hey, I'm not really feeling this. And he was like, you're being typical or something. I'm paraphrasing, but that he expected that she would get to this point. And because she was like, can I talk to you? And that when he hit her with that, then she said, well, that's not really what I wanted to talk to you about. It's not that I want to stop them. I just, was wondering other things. There was no mention of if she knew of him having freak-offs with other women. There also was no mention of women joining them in the freak-offs, from what she said. It also should be noted, she said because of the drugs, she could not even begin to remember how many freak-offs they had. But let's say they did one a week, right? And they were together for 10 years because this started in their first year. In theory, that could be up to 500 of these interactions. And that's just one a week. There are 52 weeks in a year. We took off 2 weeks. Maybe they take off holidays over that time, all across the country. I mentioned that she said initially Craigslist was where she would find the escorts. She said Backpage ads. She said that Diddy directed her to communicate with them. She said that she never reached out to any of the escorts independently. She said that the only time an escort was sent away was if they couldn't perform, right? Some of these situations were with condoms, some were not. I mentioned that in some of the jury notes that were given out last Friday, there was an indication as far as questioning, because there's sidebars, moments when the jury's not in and just the galleries in, that it was noted that Cassie's her health records couldn't be inquired about while she was on the stand. Um, we've heard things, so it's not a far leap to say that we've heard things from some of the escorts. Remember the escort that was arrested at Trump Tower back in 2018, the one that first mentioned that he was having freak-offs with Cassie and Diddy and drugged and all of these things, the one that tried to shoot up the Trump Towers Hotel. That Oh my God, I lost my train of thought. He believed that he contracted an STD from the Freakoffs and that Diddy gave him $4 million. They did manage to find the exchange, the agreement online about that with that gentleman. I think his wife confirmed that he received that money and Diddy's name was signed on this document. So do with that what you may. She also said that Diddy wanted to make sure that they weren't paid if they couldn't stand at attention, told you that, and they would get sent on their way. Sometimes he would call another one like next man up if that one couldn't perform. She said that it was also her responsibility to make sure that the escorts were safe, meaning not a cop, not someone that would go and blab the whole thing to the streets. Cassie said that she just learned that the whole situation was illegal. Jonathan Oddie, Charlie, shout out to you. Thank you, boo, because you are coming through with all of the things. So Jonathan Oddie is the gentleman's name that I was referencing from the 2018 Trump Tower incident, or at the Trump Hotel. I can't remember which hotel it was, but he is saying that he will probably testify. We haven't seen a complete witness list as of yet, so we don't know who else is coming up on the docket, but that is someone. I'm assuming some of these individuals have also been given immunity of some sort as well, just by some of the things that they are discussing. Cassie also said that she didn't realize that the situation was not legal. She said as far as the jury was told to disregard that response. She said as far as the money, security would either bring the money or Diddy brought it himself. I told you that they liked black. They shared some of the names of the various escorts that they got through dancer services and whatever, New York, LA, and Vegas. There was one guy she's called the Punisher. That's how he was referenced. That's how she knew him as. Hey, I don't want anyone named the Punisher near my gentle regions. I'm sorry. All of this sounds very, very crazy. She said that, did you use drugs at every freak off? She said yes, that she needed to disassociate and become emotionless. She said, who else used drugs at the freak off? She said Sean did, sometimes the escort. She said, as I mentioned, Special K, which is ketamine, GHB, mushrooms. They read an email in court between her and Diddy, and she was asking him, because they were separate at the time, when should she pop her pill, right? And basically, he said, she said, when will you be there? Meaning to meet up at the freak up. And she said that Sean responded and said, I took mine, I'm flying. So, he was NASA, to the moon, higher than giraffe coochie, all of those things, and was like, come on, get on board, right? She said that there were times when she wanted to vomit and that he still made her continue on in the freak off sessions. They asked her how she felt when she was on various drugs. She said GHB made her feel drunk and tipsy. Cocaine, she wasn't a fan. It made her heart race. She said mushrooms, the walls come alive, right? She said when the drugs ran out, that Sean would tell her who to hit up, and that Sean would tell her when to move to the next step in the thing, that there was, a sort of layout, like you come in. And there was one incident that she discussed, like after, they started and they were all oiled up, that Diddy had her, giving brain. And that the next thing she knew, the guy, whomever this particular escort was, hit her off from behind. She wasn't prepared. So she was, being tapped from both sides. Yeah, she said that she felt objectified by men in general. She said sometimes they would set up an iPad or the phone in the room, and he would go into another room and watch via FaceTime what was happening. So there were recordings on both their phones. She said that she would delete the recordings when she came across them. She didn't want to have look at them or be reminded of them. She didn't know what he did with the videos. This was something that she said. So keep that in mind. I told you that she said the night of the beating that she was trying to leave. Basically, I mean, it was a mess. So I am probably missing some things because it was so much. But tomorrow's cross-examination, and I am sending some prayers and some light and some love to Cassie. And we can get into personal feelings or thoughts. If you guys have any commentary, I would love to hit it. Shout out to Charlie for dropping in the chat and keeping it lit. I appreciate you so much for that. But there are a couple of things that I kind of was wondering about, just, by some of these things. Her saying that she liked the Freakoffs to have happened, that, if they were a little less frequently, I don't know how the jury is going to react to that. Granted, we know that at any point with a sexual interaction, you can say no. But did she say no? She also said that she was protecting Puff's ego, his feelings. She didn't want to let him down, see him sad or upset, which is why she participated. But if you're not being honest, although we know she did at some point, and he would get angry, it's just going to be interesting. So, Charlie, more tea. Shout out to you. You're my co-host tonight. Big ups. He says, I'm waiting for 3 firearms that had serial numbers taken off. Each one could be a 5-year prison sentence. So they did collect those from his home, which I don't know if it's sold yet, but it was up for sale. Beverly Hills, the estate that was near the Wilshire corridor. A lot of people have been to that house, been to Diddy parties. I've been to some Diddy parties throughout the years. Not those kind of Diddy parties, obviously, but, we know how Diddy at one time was known as, like, everybody wanted to go to a Diddy party. They were hyped. They had the hottest DJs. Everybody was in the place. Black excellence, sexy, 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 right? Cassie was very caught up in a lot of these things, the glamour, the jet setting, the flying around. And she admits that, it was seductive in a way. But she also said that she felt like nothing. And he treated her as such. And he was dismissive of how she felt. That she just felt like an object. Charlie adds, listen, with Cassie being pregnant and the defense is too strong, the judge will remember it during deliberation. The jury. You mean the judge or the jury? I think you mean the jury. I agree. She's a pregnant woman and you have to be gentle. But the very nature of some of this conversation, even if you are asking gently, I'm curious. I'm assuming they're going to have one of the women on his team cross-examine her. Not, he has a team of lawyers with both women and men. We know that a Black woman who is a sexual assault survivor is a lawyer on this case. I'm sorry, I forgot her name at the moment. So I'm pretty certain that a woman will be cross-examining her. So if there are things like, so you mentioned that they wouldn't have been so bad if they were less frequently. What would have been the difference? Like, there's gentle prodding. that can still get to some of the things that they kind of want to establish, because what they are trying to establish is, one, they were freaks with each other, into it, everything was consensual. Philip, who was cross-examined today, that was the escort from day one, and that's his last name, not his first name, and he was a black man. I don't know if I mentioned that. If I'm repeating it, sorry. They asked him if he felt as though Cassie was consensually involved in this. And he said he believes so, but it's hard to say, really, At first he did, but again, when it got to the points of where Diddy was being physical with her, that's when he developed ED and he couldn't get it up anymore and things of that nature. So one important distinction, one thing that he brought up is when it was mentioned one of the times where he said that, Cassie didn't come fast enough, where Diddy called her and Diddy called her a B and snatched her by her hair and told her, "You come when I call you." And they went in the room. He did not see Diddy abusing Cassie, but he heard it. So you are what you are. Dre said, Diddy paid some men escort. Is it a crime? Well, I mean, it's prostitution. He's the John. So from that aspect, yeah. But again, here is the tricky thing. Cassie is saying that Diddy supplied the money and the funds, but she was the point of contact. She booked these things. I mentioned their aliases, Jackie Star and Black. In a lot of the cases, not all the time, she was the one to hand off the money. So I'm sure the defense will highlight some of those things, Then there's the question of it. She mentioned that the Freakoffs became the job and not the music, but she also said that she wrote hundreds of songs. So I'm sure that there is going to be questions as to her marketability, her viability as an artist, and that, was his relationship putting it forward. What is going to be interesting is watching them distinguish between what was happening with her and Diddy as her boss, and what was Diddy as far as their relationship. So, listen, that was a lot, I know. Leave me feedback, leave me questions. I appreciate it. I will be back here tomorrow night with the details from Cassie's cross-examination. And we will see, what develops, what comes of this. But there was a lot there. It was very explosive. I should also mention that today, Diddy's family was again in the courtroom. And whereas yesterday, the daughters got up and left for some of this conversation, they did not today. They sat in and heard all of the vile, crazy, interesting things that their father is into as far as sex goes. So we are in for a roller coaster ride, you guys. Thank you for tapping in with me. Leave me feedback if this is a good time for you guys, because I try to do it after, so I can review all of the transcripts that I can get access to, check out other people's coverage that were in the courtroom to kind of compare notes and break it down, and then I come and give it to you. So 9:15 is our time, unless you guys think that there is a better time for this. So thank you so much for tapping in. We'll get into the details tomorrow. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. I appreciate it.